So, Mr. Shawn,
Yeah.
welcome back to Al's Down Under in the studio.
Thank you.
Here's to good times and here's to Lexington.
Here's to Lexington.
Here's to F you all the time.
Yes.
And I can say F you all the time because it's on the bottle.
It's on the
F you all
bottle.
the time.
It's on the bottle.
Yeah, for those of you at home.
All my Furman friends, I want to know how we can have this from FU. And what gets me is it's got the stamp, like right there. That's crazy.
Note, however,
Yeah.
this is 100 proof.
Yeah.
This isn't just your standard 80 proof.
No, this is
You're going to maximum.
This is a little bit more than most. This is a little more than most.
This is what you might call.
FU all the time. FU all the time.
That's what you might call high test.
It's kind of like the 93 gas, not the 87, right?
Yeah, what'd you get on your test? I got 100 proof, man.
So, you know what? That's how we can say it, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
But we were drinking Furman beer, or Furman liquor.
Furman
liquor.
Furman whiskey. We're starting off on a great foot.
Yeah, we're good.
It's been almost a year since you were here.
Yes.
In fact, I'll bet it's been at least a year because you were here before you started your gig down in Charleston.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So how's that going?
It's great. Gosh, I teach at Burke High School, right? For those of you people here that are familiar with the Citadel, I park in a Citadel parking lot.
Okay.
So the football field of the Citadel, Johnson Haygood Stadium, my school sits right next to it. Okay. So when we walk out of my school, we literally look to the left, or when I walk out to go to my car, I look to the right, and that's the Citadel football stadium. So, matter of fact, Alan, we don't even have parking passes at my high school because we park in the Citadel alumni lot, and all they care about is we're out by 8 p.m. on a home game night. Like, so they play Saturday, we got to be out. It's a great place to work. You know, a year ago when we talked last, I went there and I was like, you know, let's see how this is going to be, but it's worked out great. I work for some really, really good people, and, you know, I learned so much being in Charleston. You know, Charleston's an amazing city. It's not only, like, if you really think about the history of the United States, Charleston is right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
For example, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War.
Well, that's why we're the Palmetto State.
Absolutely. And I think that Charleston, I've learned so much from being at Burke. Like one fact I learned on my tour, when they took new teachers around Charleston, one of our retired teachers who's been there forever, he took us around and he told us a fact that has always stuck with me. And he said that 90% of the African slaves that came to America were processed at Drum Island, right under the Ravenel Bridge, in Charleston. And that struck me because, you know, my school is largely minority African American, and I have learned so much from them culturally. So I think it's amazing. Like, I'm so fascinated with, for example, the accent. The accent of African American kids is that Gullah accent, and it's very closed off. It took me like 2 weeks I'd look at some of my kids like, hey, Terrell, what'd you say again? And it's very closed, and it's very like Creole, but I love it there. I love the idea of being in a Title I school, where kind of like I'm the minority. I love the idea of making a difference for those kids. I work for some great people, and, you know, I really found a home, and it's been awesome. And so people are so appreciative of the job.
The attitude of the students, how does that differ from the attitude of the students in Lexington? You've been in education for 30 years?
27. This is my 27th year coming up.
So pretty good. My math isn't perfect, but
right.
Close.
You're close, yes. Yes, you're 100 proof. You know, honestly, I think kids are kids. And when I went there, I think what we find in education, and this is what you have to put away, it's like any adult job. The grass is not always greener. And we tend to stereotype on a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, going to there, like, you know, I went there and I was like, okay, this is a new beginning. But I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to challenge myself at 54 years old and not get set in my ways and go, this is a challenge for me. I want to go there. And we're a small school now, but the kids are, they're kids. Kids are kids. And, what kids want you to do is, in their nature, kids, I love working with kids because they're so idealistic. They, think about when we were that age. We were going to be millionaires. We were going to be this. We have
lived
dreams.
Long enough to be jaded yet.
Yeah, we have dreams, and I say kids are idealistic, adults are realistic. And as you get older, you get more realistic, and then you cross over into being pessimistic. And I never wanted to do that. So for me, those kids there, like for example, I worked and got some certifications. Like I teach engineering through Project Lead the Way. That was extra on top of my teaching license. I teach AP Computer Science. In math, I teach a class that few people like I teach probability and statistics because I have an MBA. So I like these analytical things, and your honors kids are your honors kids. It don't matter where you come from and where they come from. And but the kids there, I love them. For example, my mom passed away in May, and I was out a week, and I came back, and I had about 10 kids bring me something.
Really?
Yeah, and say, Coach, I'm so sorry about your mom. And, that meant the world to me. So,
and since everybody didn't do it, you knew that the 10 that did it were very sincere.
They were very sincere. And the people I work with, my administrators, they were like, you do what you need to do and you let us know. Like, it was just that, like, I'll say this. I think the difference for me was, and it's a powerful thing, is to be accepted, and to be in a world that is kind of different for you. Because for me, going into a school like that, it was a challenge that I accepted. And so, but they were amazing. And the kids are, it's like all kids. They just want somebody to care about them. You find kids here, even in Lexington, they just want somebody to care about them. And when you show up, I think the biggest thing is, as a teacher, is you let kids know that you care about them. I'm here to care about you. I'm here to, in a large way, be your, and I'll be honest, like, be your father. I'm a father figure to a lot of kids. And so I try to teach kids the way that I would talk to my own two children and say this. I'm going to talk to you like I talk to Jake and Grayson, my children, and say, but I love it there. It's a great school. People are great. I'm looking forward to year 2. And, we'll see where it goes. But I think the biggest thing is consistency. You're coming back. You're coming back, so it means the world to them. They want you to come back because there's a large turnover.
Right.
Let's be honest. And kids would come to me in May after I got back from my mom's thing, and they were like, Coach, you guys said, heck yeah, I'm coming back. What do you think? I care about you. I'm coming back.
So they call you coach. Are you coaching there as well?
No, I actually...
you've done a lot of coaching.
I've done a lot of coaching. And so one of my friends from back home in West Virginia, which we talked about the last time, the Ohio Valley, Dirk Thomas, he grew up across the Ohio River from me in Martins Ferry, Ohio. And I grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia. And not to get in a geography lesson, but he was a couple years older than me. And he is the head baseball coach at Wando High School, which is in Mount Pleasant, which is the north end of Charleston. If you go up 17, you go on to Georgetown from Charleston. It's on the way. And that was the original reason I went there. And I think last time we talked, I said, I'm going to go to Wando, I'm going to coach. Right. So I still help him in baseball because my school don't have a baseball team. And so him and his wife, Donna, they're amazing. Matter of fact, I'll tell you this, like I lived with them the past year because I was transitioning, and he was so gracious to say, hey, come, you can stay with us until you get your feet on the ground type thing. And it worked out great. And so I found a home. I mean, to be honest, who doesn't want to live in Charleston, South Carolina? It's a beautiful place. And
my daughter. She couldn't wait to get out.
She couldn't wait to get out. And you know what? Charleston, I was telling you before we went on air that...
rent's not cheap down there.
No. And people from there will tell you, You want to come to Charleston? It's beautiful, but you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, like for me to find a place to live, and I told you before we came on air, I got an apartment complex. I'm the youngest person there. I'm 55, and I can walk to school. And you come out and you look at them trees, and you just roll down Charleston, and there's always something going on.
So youngest person there. In this, I was telling you about this condo I bought into, where it turned out I was the youngest by far.
Right.
I was told, as I said, the average age in this place is dead. Because, the entire state of Florida is known as Heaven's Waiting Room.
Right.
And I just remember one of the things that was shocking one day, we went out to the pool. So each little, location within the country club has their own pool and whatnot.
Right.
So I go out there, and there's just a bunch of old ladies. And yes, I mean old ladies. And I don't mean that as an offensive thing, but let's just be honest. There were a bunch of old ladies.
Right.
And they're in the pool, and some of them, they got their bathing caps on, the rubber things with the little, with like the fur on it or whatever. I mean,
Did they have the American flag, like the official American?
It's just, I'm like, oh my God. But I was hot and sweaty because we had gone for a jog or something, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to hop in the pool just to kind of cool off. And kind of avoiding things a little bit. I mean, this is 20 years ago.
Right.
23 years ago. So
Is this Broward County, Florida?
No, it's actually Palm Beach. And so, I mean, what am I? Late 30s? I don't even think I'm 40 yet. No, that can't be. It is. I wasn't even 40 years old yet. So I'm in my late 30s. And like I said, I am the youngest by far in this place. Anyway, hop in the pool, cool off. And there's a bunch of old ladies in there just swimming around. And this old man comes down, and they're trying to entice him into the pool. Like, they're just like having fun. It's like maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. And why they're all in the pool at 8 o'clock in the morning, I don't know. I know why I was there. I've been out running and I needed to cool off. And they said something about, he got in the pool and they're like, hey, I forget exactly how it went, but they identified themselves as the mermaids of Aspen Glen. I'm like,
mermaids? What was it, synchronized swimming?
I definitely had a different image of a mermaid. I'm thinking of Ariel from the Little Mermaid or something. I'm like, no, this is not. So you got to be careful. That is, at the time it was not, but it is now a 55 and older community.
Yeah, well, that's me. And when I told you before we went on air that
I'm just going to be careful.
Yeah, I filled it out, and I went on there and I filled out my application, and I kept. The thing is, because sometimes I would stay with my dad lives in the subdivision over by Lexington One School District in Corley Woods, and I would drive down there and I'd go down Rutledge Avenue. So you get off and you're going through Charleston, and I would turn literally by the apartment complex I'm living in, Hampton West, and I would take a right, and Burke High School was like 2 blocks that way, and I would ride by there and I go, man, that's a nice place to live. Man, that's a nice place to live. Because, the whole last year I'm kind of thinking, all right, where do I want to live? Proximity, right? Because Burke is downtown, Wando is up 17. So I wanted to live on 17. I wanted to have that. I do not want to come in on, I told you, coming on 26 to anybody that lives in Charleston, all Charleston people, you know what I'm talking about. You come in on 26 in the morning from Somerville to Charleston, oh my, it's like playing Frogger. Remember the video game? Womp, 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 womp.
Yeah, it's getting everywhere.
Yeah, there's a wreck. Yeah. And the traffic is terrible. So I'm thinking, okay, I want to be on 17 because, I crossed the Ravenel Bridge every morning, and I thought, you know what, this is not that bad. It's much better than 26. So I started looking along there, and every morning I would drive. I said, that's a nice place to live. That's a nice place. So it just dawned on me, and I did it. And the kicker was what you said. The lady, Jayla, says, "When was you just made it." I went, "What? I just made it?" She goes, "Yeah,
you just turned 55.
You just turned 55."
Now
and
you're
like,
eligible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
next thing you know, you're
getting... you know what? AARP can just, because I don't need it because I'm a young buck now.
Yeah, I was going to say, next thing you know, you're getting AARP mailings. And
yes. Oh, I've been getting them.
Who's the other
day after I turned 50, I got them. And But going back to your original
Now, you
point.
do get senior discounts now.
Yeah, well.
Some places, 55 and older.
I
is
don't need
senior.
them. I don't need, yeah.
I don't. I'm like, no, thank you.
But you know what else too? You were asking me about the differences. The thing for me that I work with some great people in Lexington 1, Richland 2, Lexington 2, and now in Charleston. And I think the things that you like as a teacher, which is what I love, is you like the relationships you make. It isn't always about the class you teach, the subject you teach. And you're asking me about like what I like about there. I love the people I work with. As a matter of fact, this is crazy. I grew up in West Virginia, right? Country roads take me home.
Right, but you've been in Lexington for
25 years, since 98. But I'm so proud to be from Wheeling, West Virginia, and I love the people. Like, being from West Virginia is a fraternity. There are 4 people in my school, and we have less than 300 kids that are from West Virginia. As a matter of fact, we hired a new English teacher, sign of the times, in January, when we flipped the semester over. She is from my hometown of Wheeling.
really.
Yeah, and she came around, and and so my friend Casey from Charleston, West Virginia, she was showing her around because, West Virginia, we we hang, and she goes, oh, she's from West Virginia, and I looked at her and I said, where are you from? She goes, oh, I grew up in a small. I said, Bree,
Everything is small.
where are you from? I grew up, and I looked at her and I had this feeling, and I said, I grew up in Bethlehem, which is a section of my hometown of Wheeling. She goes, oh my God, I grew up in West Liberty. And I said, yes. And it's that, so within the walls of what you do, it's the relationships you meet with, like, the teachers and the people you know. And what makes education important for me is you help kids, but it's also the relationships with the people who share your struggle, so to speak.
Right.
And I've had some wonderful people to work with, and even in here in Lexington 1, and like I said, all the places I've been. But for me, I call it the journey. It's the journey of life. Like, for me, it's that moment where you look at the people you work with and go, you know what? Every job's difficult. Like, your job's difficult. It don't matter what you do. There's bad days, there's good days. But I love what I do, and I especially love the people I work with. And what's cool about Charleston, this is great. You can walk out of my high school, not move your car, and go to happy hour on a Friday.
I have a very similar experience. I can leave work at 5 o'clock on Friday.
And we just walk
and
out.
at happy hour, I'm here.
And the worst day, I'll tell you this, Bill Murray helped own this bar. It was Harold's Cabin in Charleston. It was a block from our high school. We would walk out. He said, anybody going to Harold's on a Friday, because we have a home football game. So we would all go, and it was important. It's important at any school that you support your kids, because they always want to know, Coach, you coming to our game? Coach, hell yeah, I'm coming to your game. And so, we'd walk out of school, leave our cars where they're at, and that's Charleston. And it's such an amazing place. But I work with some amazing people, like anything. And I think I call it the bus stop. Every stop of your bus in your career, and you've been through that, don't matter what you do, you meet different people along the way. And, you always look at some of them and say, you know what, I'm going to remember that person forever. And I renewed my teacher's license for the last time. June 14th, 2024. I completed my last PD class in engineering, because I teach project lead away engineering. And I told my dad, I looked at him and I said, Dad, I just took my last class. It's over. And so I renewed my license this year for the last time for 5 years.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah, I know. Never say never. James Bond said that.
I have a brother's-in-law that's getting a PhD in civil engineering.
Wow.
He is 67.
Yeah.
And he's working on it through Clemson.
Really?
And he teaches in Gainesville at...
in Florida?
Not in University of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be a community college. Now it's
Yeah.
a university nearby there. I forget the name of the school offhand. Sorry, George.
But he's at a high school.
No, he's at a university.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm never going to quit. I'm going to keep the job forever.
Well, and you
so
know
he's
what?
getting his PhD,
Right,
you know,
right.
probably to get tenure and whatnot. But yeah, he's doing it somewhat remotely, obviously, with Clemson.
Right.
And you know, like, I'm sure he would have said, you know what, I'm going to be retired in my early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But now that he's past his early 60s, he's like, retirement? Hell no, man. I'm going to go get a PhD so that I can work for the rest of my life.
Well, and you know it's funny you say that. Because
There's nothing like dead air with both of us.
yeah, like it's funny because like sometimes I think about that. Like, you know, I'm 55 and you know they have these tests where it's when you have to get 40, your biological age versus your chronological age, and I took one and you know, I work out and I took it and you know and I'm like, well, I had children later in my life and I can remember my son Jake playing at Gilbert High School, and he's playing with people who, parents, like his dad, I coached at Lexington when I first showed up. So I'm starting to think, like, I got a lot left in my tank.
Yeah.
You know, and I think age is a relative thing. Like, we live in a society that categorizes age. Well, you're getting older, and we're convinced to slow down. And I have no desire to slow down. Like, I love what I do. You know, I got out of education twice. And I said, it's like any job. You get through that burnout. And, you know, my great assets are my worst liabilities. I overwork. People interview me, say, what you're good at? I said, well, talking, one. But I said, two.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I'm great at, I'm great at working. I work. You know, my whole career has been spent putting 27 hours in a day. And I said, you know, but what's your worst liability? Well, I overwork. Because your great assets can become your worst problems. And so the one thing that I've tried to do is to step back a little bit, not burn the candle so bad. And, you know, it's funny because people say, well, you coach for so long, you've been so good at it. How I said, I don't want to be a slave to something. I don't want to wear a sweatshirt and give half effort. I have to give a full effort. And I'm in a place where I can do that. And I coach with a guy with Dirk that I can do that. And I'm happy where I'm at. You know how you get to our age in life and you're content. Like, I'm happy. Like, I can do this. I can manage my time. I have balance. And that's one thing I've tried to do is have more balance. And so one of the reasons I went to Charleston, and I'm so glad I ended up where I'm at, is because, you know, unlike here, and it really was a thing where Charleston County, because I'm certified in math, was rolling out the red ball for math teachers. And they're so short of teachers, they're like, so you work hard all your life and you go, okay, where am I valued at? And I was valued there. And the money I make, like the bonus, let's face it, I tell my kids every day, the world's green. It's not black and white, it's green. And you have to seize your opportunities, and when they come, you have to make a decision. And sometimes you'll make decisions and you go, I probably shouldn't have done that. But sometimes you'll make decisions and you go, well, I'm really glad I did it. So for me, it was the second one. But I'm not afraid to make decisions, and I'm not afraid to say, you know what, it's worth a shot. Right, and while you coach games and you do things, right?
And you have to live your life, and
right.
you can't just go by some predetermined script or whatever. And a lot of people get stuck in things. And I've gotten to a point. I've had a similar kind of experience where I did one thing for an awful long time, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done with that. I did the best I could. It's time to kind of put that to bed and pivot to doing something else. And then I just said pivot, and it reminded me of something else. And as long as you can pivot, your best days are always ahead of you.
Yeah. I remember,
Always.
Well, you and I have been neighbors for how long now? 20 years?
Coming up on 20 years in September.
And I remember you telling me when we worked in the same building, you were walking out with a box one day and you said, I just lost my job. And I'm looking at you going, and I think that's the one thing I like about, there's a bunch of things I like about teaching. And you reinvented yourself how many times? We talked about
so many times,
your journey from Florida to here and how we met.
You say something about what I do for a living, and I'm like, this is what I want to do for a living. I work too hard at the other thing. We need to have a podcast.
We need to have a podcast.
We should have a podcast.
Me and you.
What hell?
We could bring in people.
What an idea.
Oh my gosh. I got so many guys I've coached. For example,
Do you need a studio?
I got guys I coached from Coastal Carolina that won the NCAA World Series. Who the heck can say they coached somebody that won the NCAA World Series, the College World Series in Omaha, and one of them was the College World Series MVP? You know, and the guys I've met in coaching, I mean, we could put them on speakerphone. We could put people that I've met, I call it the journey.
Bring them here.
Yes, they would come here, and the guys I met coaching the Blowfish, the guys I met and the people I've coached, and you know the things I've done, and you know like the experiences. Because I think you know what things are like this. It's about the experience of life. You know, we all want to interview the professional athlete. We want to interview, but there's people out there like you and me that are normal people, not famous athletes, not famous
I like
people.
Being called normal.
Yeah. Kudos to you. And we could like have a podcast where we could like invite people in and we could talk to them about their experience. Because what people learn, I think, in podcasts like this is when they see professional athletes and they see people put their guard down. Like I always tell kids all the time, I said, you see LeBron James? Yeah, but what was he like when he was your age? Okay, what was he like? You know, grew up in Akron, Ohio. Single parent household, went to St. Vincent, St. Mary's. But if you think about it, his life had a journey. I said, You all look at the star on the stage, but what was their life? How did they get to there? You all have that dream.
This with people, and I don't know why, but this thought process has come across to me, dozens of times.
Right.
I always think this. Who was this person in high school?
Yeah.
Or who were they like in my high school?
Oh my God.
Like, were they this person? Were they that person? And then I'll go look at some of the people from high school. There's a bunch of my former classmates that are getting together for a second 40th reunion.
Second 40th? That means 80?
No, they did the 40th last year, and they're doing it again this year.
Oh, yeah.
They had so much fun last year. And, you go online, you look some people up, and you're like, damn, look at that guy. Man,
what happened to him?
No, it's not. It's the other way around. It's like, he was never going to measure up, you thought, or something like that. And you're like, no, dude, hit it. Hit it out of the park, but you wouldn't have seen it.
No.
You couldn't have predicted it.
And it's the disconnect. I remember, the actor Michael B. Jordan, who was in Creed, and Friday Night Lights, the show. I loved that show back in the day. He used to carry around a picture of himself when he was 15 in his school. And there was an interview, and it's on YouTube. And this girl interviewed him who was from his high school, who was a couple years older than him, that made fun of him every day. Because he said he was going to be a star. He had this view. And I can still remember him talking to her like, you remember me? She goes, yeah, I remember you. He goes, you remember when you made fun of me? He was saying it on camera. After Creed 3 or whatever the last one.
I've seen this interview.
Yes.
I've seen it.
And kudos to him.
She tried to
She tried to play it off, but he didn't let her off the hook.
He's like, yeah.
And he is like, well, yeah, remember that days? But I think what people fail to understand is, which is why I like being a teacher, is you look at kids every day and, everybody wants to teach all the star kids, right? Okay, well, they have the same anxieties and problems that the lower level kids have. It may come in different forms. The kids at my school, they have the same problems as the kids at Lexington High School, the kids at River Bluff, the kids at Gilbert where I taught. The demographics somehow can change, but the kids have the same things. It's simple to me. Let them know you care, and you care about them as a person, and you want to help them. That's all teaching is now. I think in our day it was more fire and brimstone, like you walk in and you go, this is the way it's going to be and you're going to fail, right? Okay.
I certainly had those teachers.
Yes, and I've had them too. And I've had a lot of great teachers in my life and a lot of great influences, but education's changed. So I think when I started in 1993, I think what changed for me was probably 75% of the time I was teaching my subject, 25% I was probably teaching. But it was more like now 50-50. I take the time, and what you have to do as a teacher is you can't get frustrated with the lack of progress. You have to measure. What I had to learn to do to be successful in teaching is flip my mind. Because I was a good student. So like you, I was very driven to be successful. I was the AP kid, I had the honors classes type thing. And so I realized that not every kid was raised like me. And at the same time, you have to realize that education is more than just your subject. So sometimes you have to stop and talk to them about themselves as a human being. Well, what do you want to be? Because you know what? You might be the most important message they've heard all day, because they might be going home to something. They'd be going home to nothing. And if you ask me, what's the difference? It's because the percentage of kids in which I have become the father figure to. And I tell young people all the time, if you are not willing to be a mother or a father to your kids, then don't go into education, because it can be very taxing. But at the same time, the best thing is it's very rewarding, because those kids that you don't think, remember we were talking about this, that you don't think they're in the back of the class, and they come up to you when they're graduating and they go, Coach, thank you for everything. And you're like, this is why I do what I do. Well, this is my moment.
You go back to, here's this guy I knew in high school that you didn't think was ever going to amount to anything.
Oh,
right?
My gosh, yes.
But then they do.
Yeah.
Right? So the benefit of the 30 or 40 years of life that you get afterward is to go, wait a minute, that guy, if a teacher gave up on that person when they were in high school, when I looked at them and said, well, they're probably not going to amount to much of anything, because, I was the driven student.
Right.
And like, oh, they're not driven, but they're doing better than I am.
Yeah.
And with that perspective, as a teacher, you can go, wait a minute, this kid might look like he doesn't care right now,
right,
but he's going to care, and I can serve that. I can envision the future person that I'm looking at, and I can serve that future person today. Even though that student may not know it, they may not recognize that you're serving their future person, but you are. And you can only do that once you've gotten the perspective of, wait a minute, I remember people I went to high school that were never going to amount to anything.
Right.
And they're just killing it these days.
Well, one thing I tell kids is simple. Everybody can talk about you. They can talk about your hair. They can talk about how they're jealous of you. They can talk about who you are. But the one thing they cannot talk about is your work ethic. No one says anything bad about a great work ethic. I've coached against guys that I probably didn't care about very much as a person, but I'll give them their credit. They work hard.
Right.
I tell kids all the time, the purest thing you can do is to work hard. Set yourself to accomplishing goals. What people who hire you want to see is not your education, and I get it. Some jobs require education, right? You want to be a lawyer, you got to go to law school. But I said, what will define you as a human being is your work. That's what people see. So when I coach kids, I would say, winning is why we're here. We are not here to go 5-5, lose 24-20, and somebody tell us it's okay. Winning is tangible. Don't show up, because as human beings, we want tangible rewards, right? So don't show up and work your off all this time to go 5-5, because winning is tangible. That is the biggest reward we have for our work. And so what I try to communicate to kids is how to win. Now, you may not play a game, you not play a sport, but if you really think about it, what you're competing against in life is a competition. You're competing against other people. And I would tell kids all the time, you're going to go for an interview. So what's going to separate you from the other 8? So I would tell them, Dave Thomas, remember the founder of Wendy's? Mm-hmm. The 2 best bites of the hamburger, the first one and the last one. So in my classes, I tell them all the time, look at me. When you go for an interview, ask them when they call you, what is the first and last time? And they say, well, the last is 2:30. Go last. Because they're going to make a decision right after 2:30. That's the best impression you'll ever make. And so I try to fill them with strategies to help them and also encourage them to go beyond. Because some kids, you have to encourage to go beyond even the limitations of their own parents. And it's not being critical, it's being real. there are people who don't want their kids to be more successful than they are. And when you try to break outside that box, it's like, well, how dare you leave us? You think you're better than we are. And it's a very common thing in education. And so as a teacher, I'm being real here. Like, you have to look at kids and say, you're better than that. Be that. What do you want for your life? What do you want for your existence? Do you want to water it down to what other people think, or do you want more for yourself? Do you want to be a person that doesn't turn 40, because you know how this is, and go, gee, I regret not trying when I was 18.
I will.
Yeah.
Regret is probably the biggest
It's
driver.
the biggest thing as adults, right?
Oh my God, it is the biggest driver of everything.
It's a driver of everything.
So let me ask you this. You're a changed man. You are different today than you were a year ago.
Very much so.
And I know why.
Yeah.
But how do you think you've changed?
I think a lot of things, like it's given me a new perspective. You know, we lived up the street. I moved to Charleston. I mean, I'm not afraid to say my wife and I separated, and Grayson and Jake, our children, you know, Becky's amazing. She, you know, is, you know, we always put our kids in front, and we agree on how, like, we're going to raise our children. We agree on a lot of things, and it's kudos to her because, you know, you both have to agree. It's not easy to, like, split up. Like, it's not easy, and especially when you have kids. But, you know, she's amazing. She has done such a good job, and her and I agree on so many things, like on so many levels, and that's important for our kids.
Some people, frankly, get along better when they're not in the same house.
Yeah, and I really
maybe they're in the same house, but they're in, you know, they just keep their distance.
Yeah, and you know what that's like.
I've known people with different houses and
Yeah.
they remain married, and they're better off. Like,
yeah,
one's on the West Coast,
yeah,
one's on the East Coast. They still have a bond.
Absolutely.
And
I think for her and I think, you know, like, without getting too personal, I think we are very much on the same page with that. Like, you know, for example, you know, car insurance is coming up next month, and she has been gracious enough to pay that. And so I told her, I said, okay, let's do this. And I was telling you, my daughter had an at-fault accident, and here we go. And she is fretting about it. I said, all right, why don't we split it? And she goes, I agree. And she jumped right on it because we were thinking the same thing. And she goes, Grayson can go. I said, she goes, one goes with you, one goes with me. And she didn't say which one. And I said, hey, Grayson can go with me and Jake can go with you. And she goes, yes. And I said, I got it. Right. So we read each other. And you know what? She's an amazing woman. She's a wonderful mother. You know, she's still up the road, and, you know, and for me, I felt like I wanted to go to Charleston to kind of start anew. You know, it's like anything when you
it's a new challenge.
It's a new challenge. Right. And I wanted a new challenge. I wanted a new culture. So when I took the job at Burke, when you were asking me, I knew walking in, you know, you have to challenge yourself in life. You have to say to yourself at this age, you can't get set in your ways and go, well, you know how everybody talks. And you're like, you know what? I ain't doing that. I'm going to get on with my life. If it's to be, it's up to me. It's time for you to, you know, it's a new challenge. Go do it.
So you've been in 4 different school districts.
Yep.
Lexington 1, 2, Richland 2, and whatever the district is there in Charleston.
Yep, Charleston County.
How much difference does the district personnel, you know, the superintendent,
the mantra from the top down? From
the top down, how much difference does it make in your experience as a teacher, or in the quality of education the students get? I mean, it's clearly the students are being taught by the teachers. Mm-hmm. The teachers are being managed by the principal of a school,
right? And
they're being directed by the superintendent of the district, or the school board of the district. How much difference is there between the districts?
I think, honestly, being in 27 years, I've had a lot. I think there are principles. Everything as a teacher comes from the principal, right? You feel the culture of your school, but ultimately you feel the culture of the district. I think you I think there are districts that tend to back off from controversy if they perceive it. I think there are districts that tend to say, no, this is how we're going to do it. But I think the biggest change in education, honestly, is social media. I think, I think every school district, and I'm just being honest, I think every school district doesn't want to have the negative mark from anybody on social media. I think social media, I always joke with people in education. I think in America, in our world, we are on a 30-year mental health study right now, and we've been on it with social media, 20 years at least. And you see the impact in your classroom.
Are you on any social media? Do you follow? Do you watch?
It's funny. I got rid of Twitter when my son told me, you were talking about Lexington 1. My two children had a great education here. My son, Grayson, my daughter, went to Lexington. She had dual credit, super smart, doing great at Midlands Tech in nursing. My son Jake was with me at Gilbert. He did dual credit also, and I told him, I said, I want you to take a trade skill. And my brother Jason, my younger brother, owns a masonry company here in Lexington, and he is so successful. And there's this big donut hole. Go back to American education. Everybody wants to go to college, right? So my son Jake.
Bad idea.
Yeah, I said, which one do you want to take? Your uncle says HVAC, electricity, construction, or welding. He goes, I want to do welding. I said, okay, so do it. So my son, this is crazy, his senior year at Gilbert, he had a double block of welding 2. So he was at Lexington Technology Center 2 blocks. Well, the dual credit at Gilbert High School was second block. Well, he was at welding. He came back to Gilbert and did online dual credit third block on his own, and then had football class, fourth block. So the point I'm trying to make is my kids went through it, and my son has 18 hours of college credit and then enrolled. He goes, Dad, I want to do welding. I love it. He loved it. And
you're creating stuff.
He did, and he is so good at it. And his teachers told me, he said, Coach, he's awesome. He's got a future in this. So he's at Midlands Tech now. He's got a full ride with a South Carolina trade scholarship. He has a $300 credit every year, including summer term. Most scholarships don't cover summer term. His covered the summer term. That's how desperate. So, you go back to the value of economics. We've encouraged all these kids to go. And I coach guys at Gilbert that were in the welding program at LTC, and they're like, Coach, there's no one. That in the welding program, there's amazing. But Mr. Black, and I can't remember the other teacher, but they're amazing. But I think what we've done is we've told everybody they need to go to white-collar work, right, in America. And there's my son who is about to, let me tell you something. I know kids right now that I coach at Gilbert High School that barely passed Algebra 1, let's be realistic here, that are pumping about $3,000 a week welding. Because you know why? There's nobody who's 35 who's doing it. They're either 55 or 20.
So back here, we have 2 bottles, Noble, the Noble whiskey, and the Noble bourbon and the Noble rye.
Yeah.
That is Mike Rowe. You know Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs?
Yeah.
Okay, that's his whiskey.
Is that his whiskey?
Noble is his grandfather.
Right.
His grandfather's last name was Noble. So he made that in honor of him. He has been trying to get people into the trades. He offers scholarships into the trades. By far, this is his passion, is to get people into the trades. And the ability to make a living out of that, a meaningful living. Yeah. And that's the difference. It's not about how much money you make. It's about, is there any meaning in what you're doing? Are you actually enjoying it?
Right.
And the creativity. So, kind of the reason that I bring that up is that we are so driven toward, we should go to college for things.
Yeah.
The opportunities. My wife's brother has been in the concrete business since, I don't know, probably before high school. He probably knows where Jimmy Hoffa's buried. He's going to do better than probably all of us.
Yeah.
Because he's stuck to something. He looks at things. I know how to solve problems. I know what it is that how can I improve this? Because I've put in the labor. How can I make this a little bit better for the generation after me?
Right.
And he's looking at that going, there's this thing we could do. He's invented, I'll bet he invented half a dozen things. And, he's got something going right now that looks like it might do really well. But it doesn't require that you spend all of your time in a white collar job. Yes, I've had a white collar job for my entire career, but that won't last. There's going to come a day where I can't do that.
Right.
And I keep telling people, ask me when I'm going to retire. I'm like, I'm never going to retire. But I'll tell you one better. I'm already retired.
Right.
I don't want to stop working. I want to do something that's meaningful and productive. So if retirement is you get to do what you want to do, I'm doing it already.
Right.
I'm retired now. I get up in the morning and I do what I want to do that day.
Right.
7 days a week, 365 a year. That's what I do. I do what I want to do. And what I want to do is to be creative and to be productive. So, you talk about Jake welding. What's he want to do? Well, I got all these choices. He's already realized, I want to do this creative thing.
Yeah.
Because welding, I don't know that AI is going to take over welding.
No. And it's funny.
Robotics, you can get a robot welder.
Right.
But it can't solve the problems.
No. And AI because you're in computing. AI has flaws, and people think it's...
Stop.
Yeah.
Have you played much with AI?
Oh my gosh, yes. Because I teach AP Computer Science, and we go on to all those things like Chat, GPT, or whatever, and we look at this. All right, this is the greatest one. You ready? Kids use translators to turn in, and I'm like, okay, you are trying to translate, let's say, a foreign language, like Spanish. Well, in Spanish, the indirect object comes in front of the verb. So if you said le tengo, or lo tengo, or say I have it, le tengo, I have him, or I have her. Le tengo is for a person, le, L-E. So what AI will do is if you have another sentence, it'll go, I have him. But then the next sentence, if you say,
It'd be her.
le amo, like I love him, it'll say, I love her. The machine and we know machines can learn, right?
Sure.
Right.
It'll get better.
It'll get better. But it doesn't understand right now, at least, that there's a difference. The lay is still the same thing. And I have him, I love him, and it goes, I have him, I love her.
I play around with ChatGPT a lot because, yes, I'm in the computer business.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's interesting to me. And I'm convinced it's going to be the death of all of us. But it's... so my daughter for Father's Day gave me these 3 Japanese books.
Yeah.
They're novels from Japan from the 1940s, 1930s and 40s and whatnot. This novelist, I forget his name, I forget his first name. I don't know. First name, last name. Dazai might be his family name, I'm not sure. In any case, they're English translations, of course, because I don't read Japanese. Who does? Except my daughter. Somebody has got to come up with an answer for what the heck can I do if she's a savant with language.
Right.
An absolute savant. What you can do with that, I don't know. I'd love to find out what it is.
Right.
But in any case, she gave me these books. I'm reading through it and I'm like, was jarring to me to read the English because they're not literal translations.
No.
And I never thought about this.
No.
They are translations, but in a time frame in English. So one of the books has been translated more recently, and the English is more modern. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is a book that was written in the 40s, but they would never say this in English in the 1940s. And I'm like, how does it translate from the Japanese in the 1940s to this phrase today? I'm like, this is just shocking to me. So I find out that, but it was just recently translated, let's say 20 years ago, 25 years ago or something like that. So it was written in the English for that time. So the translation is true to the original writing, but let's take the spirit of it and translate it to
But you can't
what
do
it
it.
meant. Well, you can as a human.
Right. But you can't as a machine.
Right. So I went and found the original Japanese of one of these books, and I copied and pasted the first 3 or 4 paragraphs from the opening chapter, and I put it into ChatGPT and said, translate this. And it gave me something completely different. And I'm looking at it, and I'm reading the English translation. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of interesting. And it's similar to what the English translation that I'd read was, but it was missing some of the nuance.
Right.
And I don't know if the AI is ever going to get the nuance of that. The translator who'd done this, and this particular translation had been done actually, so there's 3 different books, there's 3 different translators, and one of them was like in the 1950s or something. And it caught all of that nuance. And there was like 4 or 5 sentences he added in this 3-paragraph section just to catch the meaning of what was there. AI just translated what it was. And I'm like, you missed some of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's ever going to come around to that. So, you look at what is AI going to replace. It's going to replace a lot of things, there's no doubt. But there's some things it's not. And you don't need to go to college so that you can continue to be relevant. In fact, you might go, you know what? While this wave goes this way, I might just go sneak behind the wave.
Yeah.
Because that's where the void is going to be. Everybody's going doing this. Yeah, well, you know what? How about if I go do what everybody's not doing?
And here's my son, and when you talk about trade skills, what was the stereotype? Well, they're not good enough to get in college. My son had 18 hours of dual credit, and he chose to be a welder. And he's like, Dad, he goes, I could go play college baseball, I could go play college football, but at 23, I'm going to weld anyway. And he goes, and I got a plan. As a parent, you want your kids to have a plan, right? And I'm like, really? Because I told him, have a plan. And he said, yeah. And he said, I'm going to go till my mid-30s. And then, I'm not going to do it forever. It's a lot of wear and tear. And he said, and by then, I'm going to be a welding teacher. Because now, I tell kids all the time, don't major in education. Major in something else, because the PACE program, which is the alternative certification, I bet you in education now, we're getting close to half the people are alternative. Like, let's say, for example, you want to go teach computer science, right? You could start tomorrow. Why am I going to spend thousands of dollars on a degree when all I have to do is, I could start this year because they're starved for math and science teachers, and hence my reason to go to Charleston. And because Charleston County School District they're the first district to start paying people in critical need. And people do not understand the dire straits we are for teachers. Like, people just assume, no.
Well, the problem is
we have a problem.
In some areas, teaching sucks.
It is, yes. And so what you do, you just said it. It's I'm taking anybody I can get. We don't need quality teachers. We want bodies.
Right.
This is where we're at now.
But you don't want just bodies that can breathe.
No.
But what you want are subject matter experts.
And to be truthful, I felt like here, I like in Charleston, when I show up every day, the people there I work for are great. Coach, we're so glad you're here. Coach, we're so...
So that takes me back to the district thing.
Yeah.
The district management. So
yeah.
Guy that hired me on my first job out of college, he was working in the tech industry, but he was an artist at heart. And he spent a career in tech.
Right.
Retired, and it's like, screw it, I'm going to be an artist. So he's an artist, and he's living in Jacksonville, Florida now. And he's actually an amazing artist.
Right.
For a little bit of time, he went and taught. He's like, you know what? Kids need teachers.
Yeah.
And he went there, and he had fun doing it until he didn't have the freedom to teach anymore.
Absolutely. Yep.
That has got to be a district-to-district thing. He was teaching kids about Thanksgiving in a certain way, and they're like, no, you can't teach it that way. He's like, I want to teach the kids. I have this experience. I have this knowledge. I have all this. I want to give it to the kids.
Right.
I want to serve them, But now you're telling me I can't serve them. I've got to fit inside this box. Mm-hmm. Now, this guy, his name is Ron, he will never fit inside a box. Mm-hmm. You will not find a box. Now, here's the difference. I'm the guy, they tell you to think outside the box. I'm the guy inside the box, measuring it to make sure it's still square so that you can think outside that box.
Right.
The society needs all these people.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking about district to district, how different it is from the mindset from the top down. Because in South Carolina, there's all kinds of stuff about, teachers aren't paid well enough, and they don't have a good enough work environment, and so on and so forth, and the kids don't care, and the parents don't care, and I'm sure all of it is true.
Right.
But it's got to be different from district to district.
It is, and I'm not here anymore. Like, I felt in Lexington one of the reasons I left was I felt like there was this overarching. For example, I was at Gilbert. Right? Gilbert's not Lexington or River Bluff. Our demographic's very different. We have kids that come from Shaw Island, right? Which is a lot like Lexington, let's be honest, in terms of demographic. All the way to down to close to Pelion, and we had kids from the upper echelon all the way to a single wide. And there's rich and poor and everywhere. It's not to disparage a community in any way, but in Gilbert, I always joke with people. I said Lexington is wine and cheese, Gilbert's Jack Daniels and hamburgers, and we had this eclectic mix of kids from socioeconomic backgrounds that were very different, and I always felt like Lexington 1 was run according to what, like, the wine and cheese thinking was done. And I didn't like it. I never liked it. And when I was out at Gilbert, even though I lived here, and Becky and Grayson are at Lexington, Jake went to Gilbert with me, and I took a lot of pride in I'm at Gilbert. Because it reminded me of West Virginia, where I grew up in Wheeling, right? It was the same demographic. But I felt district-wide that this district did not care as much about those lower-end kids. Like, it was sort of in a state of denial a little bit about the problems we have. Like, it was like, well, those are somebody else's problems. No, there are problems, okay? For example, every year at Gilbert, and I would have more and more Latino, Hispanic kids in my classroom. And no one was there to help me. No one was there to give me assistance. These kids show up. I'm not a politician. I don't care how they got here. That's not my problem. My problem is to teach them. They're here now. I'm going to teach them because I care about them as a teacher, right? No one was there to help me. No one cared that they're in my classroom and they barely speak English. It was like, good luck, you're going to need it. So if you want my honest assessment, in December 2020, I started teaching myself Spanish on Duolingo. I said, I am tired of these kids being put aside. And so I started learning Spanish. I said, I'm going to learn it. I just turned 50, and I wanted to challenge myself. And you know me as a baseball coach. Well, okay, if you really look at our country, why is 45% of the major leagues baseball, major league, Latino? And why is
and I bet half
40% of the NBA foreign? Okay, there's a reason for this. Because in America, we anoint the next 15-year-old as the next great LeBron James, and we anoint the next 15-year-old as the greatest. Yeah,
I think
look at your best players now. They're not American.
LeBron James's son, who's maybe 18.
Yeah.
Just signed a multi-million-dollar contract with the Lakers. Are you kidding me?
That was all LeBron.
Oh my God.
He ain't that good. I'm being honest. He ain't that good.
All right, so
he ain't that good.
How is that going to work out?
That was LeBron lobbying for his kid.
Of course.
Yeah.
But how is that going to work out?
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron's going to retire.
Okay, so right? Let's go further.
And his kid's going to be left.
Let's go further.
He's going to wash out.
So they're on the same. Let's say they're on the Lakers together.
What are you doing to
What's he going to go to J.J. Redick and go, oh, he should be playing more minutes? Come on, man.
Right.
Okay, that is...
What are you doing to
that
your
is
kid?
Okay, that is education now. You just hit the nail on the head with one of the reasons that I'm where I'm at, right? And I left here. I felt like here there was a holier than thou mentality about denial of the problems we have for kids. And we weren't serving kids. So I learned Spanish on my own. And I had some great people at Gilbert, our Spanish teachers at Gilbert, who helped me a ton, you know, and helped me tremendously. I would go to their classrooms on my planning period to listen to them talk to kids. Well, first of all, most of our football players when I was coaching have issues in math and foreign language because they don't take it serious. So I said, well, I'm going to come sit next to you. And I would stare at them like this. And I said, well, heck, while I'm here, I might as well learn Spanish. So the Spanish teachers at Gilbert High School were so amazing because they helped me. They would give me worksheets. I'd fill them out. I would participate in activities. And I said, I need to help these kids. And in Espanol, honestly, there's a difference between intelligence and language. Hay una diferencia entre idioma y inteligencia. And I just decided, you know what? Somebody's got to help these kids. I had no help. And I got frustrated. And out of that frustration, I said, okay, it's on me, right? Because I'm a teacher. So everything in education, Alan, stops at the teacher. Because they control us. Like, this is who we are. Like, right. So it's your problem they're not learning. So I tell my kids every day, I said, imagine your life where your paycheck revolves around someone else doing their job. And when they don't do their job, it's your fault. I tell my kids straight up. I said, that is my world. Now, I chose this life. I'm not going to complain about it. But understand, and this is how I relate to my kids. Even at Burke, I said, does anybody here know the feeling of being sold out by a friend or someone? Raise your hand. No, you don't have to raise your hand.
The problem is...
But you know that feeling.
At that age, all of these kids know that.
Yes, they know that. So I'm trying to get them to relate to me because I have to get them to make a connection. I said, now you know what it's like when you don't try every day and I got to hear about it. Do you understand that? And I said, welcome to my world. I said, you live in that same world. It ain't very good, is it? And they'll go, you can see their eyes going, no. And I said, so.
But the reality is that is the world.
That's the
world. So many people want to paper over that kind of thing. And they go, oh, no, it can be this beautiful thing. They have this idealistic thing. You said something about idealism and realism and something else earlier.
Right.
That I hope I'm going to go back and find. I'm going to clip that out. I'm going to put
Young
that out
people
by
are
itself.
idealistic. Old people are realistic. And as you get older, you get more pessimistic.
There you go.
Yeah.
I am going to frame that in a clip.
Yeah.
That is going to go out there by itself because it is
So you asked me why I teach, right? At 55, here I am. I'm the youngest person in my complex. And I said to myself, I never want to be pessimistic.
Yeah.
That's why I hang with young people. Adults, I don't want to work with adults. I work with some great adults, and I'm not saying I don't want to, but I work with colleagues that are amazing. But when I shut that door, okay, you go back to the control, right? Education is full of people who tell you, this is what kids need. Okay, great. Did you ever ask the kids? No.
Because everybody's
Or the big buzzwords. Research shows. Okay, where's the research come from? No one can tell you.
Right.
Research shows. All right, where's it come from? No one can say it.
Everybody's so condescending.
Oh, yeah.
That they think
Yeah.
they know better than the person who they're working for. Oh, you know what? This person I'm trying to serve, they're not capable of figuring out themselves. Yes, they are. Just the same as you are.
Yep.
But it is such a condescending attitude to take, to say, you know what? You can't help yourself.
No.
You have to so humble yourself.
Yep.
And that's the difference. So many people don't do that.
No. And I felt that people have this attitude like, well, you know, research shows. Well, where's the research? Well, they can't tell you. They just heard it.
You know how much research is fraudulent? I mean,
Yes,
let's not go into
and
that.
I'm a stats teacher, so I'm going, well, where was the sample size? What did they do? Well, they can't tell you, but that's what we do. Because here's the problem.
Well, it's what feels good.
So here's the problem. The time frame of any educational study is way too short to be any validation. So I just shut my door and I do what I do. And at the end of the day, I look at my kids and I say, you know what, I'm going to treat them like my two children. That's the way it's going to be. And I tell them that. I said, I'm going to treat you like my two children. I said, when I need to pat you on the you know what, I'm going to do it. When I need to tell you need to get it in gear, I'm going to let you know. And I'm not going to be, I'm going to be direct and honest with you. This ain't no sugarcoat. My job, I hope when you turn 20 or 21 or 22 or 25, you go, that dude was the best teacher I ever had. Because it's about preparing kids for the world.
Right.
And I feel like education
Are you necessarily
does a bad job of preparing kids. It's kicking the can down the road. So when they get that diploma and they go on, they are totally unarmed for what's ahead, and they go, oh my God. And it's like when you give them that diploma in high school, you shake their hand, on the stage, and you go, good luck, because you're going to need it.
Are you the favorite teacher or are you the best teacher?
You know what's crazy?
I know you're not going to say
I'm
you're
not
the best
always
teacher.
nice. Like, I tell them direct. And sometimes my West Virginia gets the best of me, but I tell them straight. But sometimes, you know what you do? You make them feel like coming back the next day. Like, one of my lines is I look at kids and I'll say, you're better than that. Act like it. Instead of saying something really negative, you let them know that in that way that they're better than that, and you think they are.
I believe in you.
Yes. That's my favorite line. You're better than that. Why don't you act like it? And sometimes, what you find in education, even with technology, like the biggest problem I have with cell phones in my classroom is parents calling their kids. I'm like, who's that? My mom. And they'll be yelling at them, hurry up, get down. I'm Mr. Torbett's giving me my assignments. Well, hurry up. And it's just like this disconnect. And what gets me is, you were asking me about social media. I totally got rid of all social media. I got rid of Twitter when Jake didn't want to play college. I got rid of Instagram when I quit coaching, because that's how I charted my players. And in November of last year, I was looking around and I looked at Facebook and I said, adults have become just as bad as kids. They tell you, oh, I'm a wonder. It's all about the self-promotion of what a wonderful parent I am. And you're like, really? My kid doesn't do that. I'm like, come on, man.
I don't know whether my kid does do that or not. I think she does, but I'm sure she wouldn't admit to it in public.
There's some things I don't want.
I won't admit to it myself in public.
What was I doing? What were we doing when we were 20?
I wasn't going, my parents were the best.
No.
Sorry, Mom. I wasn't saying that.
No, even Grayson and Jake, I'll say, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Well, I become a great dad when Dad, my truck's not working right. Grayson, Dad, my car, I think my brakes
when
need
you can
fixed.
write a check, you're good.
Yes. We were with some money machine. And
eventually you'll be good. You
Yeah,
really will be
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But right now it's just like, write a check.
But you know what? Life's good. Like, we sitting here talking, and I'm in a great place. I love where I'm at. I work for some good people. My principal is my AP, especially when my mom died. My mom died in May, and I had to go back here and then to West Virginia for her funeral. And the people at my school were just like, listen, you take care of your family. We're here for you. We got you. And like I said, I think, as a teacher, you're a pleaser by nature. We all are. We want to do a good job, right? And I've always liked it because you feel like you have a say in the world. Like you have an influence on tomorrow. And if you can help one kid or one student get out of that idea, it's amazing. It don't matter how many championships you win. It don't matter. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. You make a difference. And you get out of bed, and you don't like it every day, but you love it overall. And, when a kid walks by who's 17, who didn't talk to you the first day of school, and he, you all know that, all the hugs, right? You know that. And they say, and they walk past 10 other people, but they say hi to you, that's the best feeling of all. You know that you're doing something right. And my style, I like sometimes I look back, Alan, and I go, gosh, I'm so tough. But I must be doing something right because everybody likes to talk to me. But I think at the end of the day, as a coach, I try to relate to kids. Even as a teacher, I try to understand them. And I think for a teacher, no matter whether you're here in Charleston, you have to understand the culture of your school. You have to relate to people, right? When you walk into a new company, what's the culture here? What are the people like?
Yeah, the culture's
And it's different.
stories I could tell you.
Yeah, and you've done it. And some cultures are like, what? And other cultures are like, yeah, this is more my speed. And, and when I went to Charleston, I had to fit in, and I knew it, and I did, and I love it. I got a great job, and I got great people around me, and I like it. So we're going to keep the ball rolling down the road,
I think we've reached the end. That is a
Alan,
perfect place to stop.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.